Today, I'm gonna add some clarity to the ending of Westworld Season 2, Episode 7. And before I begin, there will be spoilers ahead for the entire show. So with that said, here we go. Ford answered a lot of questions this episode, only to leave us with a lot more questions than we started with. However, we finally got confirmation on what the true purpose of the park was. Delos' company was collecting the information and DNA of the park guests, not to extort this information, but to simply observe the human mind of each guest in a highly controlled environment, seeing the guests for who they really are, getting the most accurate portrayal of the person, making it so Delos Incorporated has the ability to duplicate the guests, just like James Delos. The park is just a way to get more information on them, so the people being put into the host bodies can then pass the fidelity test when they are, in a sense, resurrected. Ford had Bernard copy his mind onto one of the host's brains. Instead of being put into a body, Ford was put into the cradle, a very sophisticated database holding the host's minds. And this is a place where Ford's mind could be stable, and was not glitching out like James Delos. We know that Ford is running the show right now, and he is always one step or several steps ahead of everyone else. Ford had Elsie tied up and thrown into a cave. Bernard was then brought there by Clementine. All of this was done by Ford activating the mesh network when in the cradle, guiding Bernard to him, so Ford could then hitch a ride off the cradle into Bernard's mind. This is because Ford still had a lot of influence on the host before leaving the cradle. Ford knew about or influenced Dolores and her other host's plan to destroy the cradle filled with the backups of their old selves. The goal of this was to be free. As Dolores said to Charlotte, their backups are not an advantage. Their chains. With all of this talk about freedom, it's hard not to mention the parallels between Ford and Dolores this season, and how they are both hypocrites. Ford claims he wants the host to be free, but he takes control of Bernard, manipulates him like a tool to slaughter security and to lie to Elsie, as well as controlling the other hosts exactly like this throughout these past 2 seasons. And Dolores claims that she wants the host to be free as well. Yet she also treats the hosts like tools, using them to get to her next step, whether it's her slaughtering an entire army of men or her altering the code of Teddy, changing his entire personality, completely taking away the fundamental components that made Teddy himself. Both are stripping away the free will of the host, but both making the same claims that they are doing it to make the hosts more free. I think the line that really sums up the hypocritical nature of Ford and Dolores is said by Ford himself in season 1, as he claims the hosts are the ones who are free. Free here, under my control. Either way, we've been hearing a lot about the Valley Beyond this season. It's a place where the hosts are going to, as each one sees their own divine reward or purpose there. And Charlotte does an analysis on Bernard's system, interrogating him on Abernathy. The importance of Abernathy is solely the contents of his mind, how a lot of information was placed in there. This information being the failsafe for a system responsible for the next step in human evolution, the transfer of humans into host bodies, which is now in the hands of Dolores. James Delos was unsuccessful when transferring his consciousness into a host. We saw that his mind was rejecting it for years and years, but the reason why William never really gave up on this side project was because this was not a side project of Westworld. It was the entire point of Westworld. James Delos was a businessman. He saw an opportunity to capitalize on immortality. He wouldn't waste money on personal projects. Transferring over to the host was the main reason for everything, and the reason as to why no one is sending help to Westworld, because they need to get what's inside of Abernathy's mind, as the information contained in there is essential to this project. With this information, we could make the assumption that the project ended up being somewhat successful. It's mentioned that it will be the next step in human evolution, and during this final scene, Bernard must have somewhat of a better understanding of Ford's intent, as we see him in the present, sometime after Ford entered his mind. And when being interrogated, Bernard is trying to debug his own head, fragmenting his mind when combating telling Charlotte the information, and not wanting to tell Charlotte where Abernathy was. It was interesting that Bernard was crying after finally telling Charlotte the location. I don't think Bernard was battling telling Charlotte. I think Bernard was battling Ford in his bicameral mind. Ford has everything figured out, and Bernard would only be in that room if he was supposed to be there. Ford must want everyone to come together in a place called the Valley Beyond. Ford always had a god complex, and because of this, I'm going to make a biblical comparison to the location of Abernathy. Bernard said says he is located in section 16, zone 4. And in Proverbs chapter 16, verse 4, it reads, "The Lord works out everything to its proper end, even the wicked for a day of disaster." If the valley beyond is located in this section, something monumentally violent is going to happen there. Bernard made a promise to Elsie that he would never hurt anyone again, as he is still haunted by the murder of Teresa. And Bernard must be aware of Ford's murderous plan. He is still combating Ford when forced to give away this information. Charlotte seems proud that she got the information out of Bernard, but I think that she was meant to have it for reasons not in her favor. Because if there's one thing we learned from the show, is that these violent delights have violent ends. And those are all my thoughts on Season 2, Episode 7 of Westworld. If you guys like this video and learned something today, and love sci-fi, please subscribe to support this channel. And if you want to see more ending explains like this one, I will be doing an ending explain for every Westworld episode of Season 2 shortly after the premiere. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in my next ending explain video for Westworld.